in school?
Well, right now I'm doing the transition phase, so we haven't gone back. I haven't gone back. I'm doing it from home right now, but I'll be going back at the end of September. So yes, I look forward to it.
Yes, I'm very much enjoying my children being back.
Yeah. Have you in touch with Ailish at all, Gravity? Have you seen her around?
I saw her a week ago, and she is staying on the coast this year. I think she ended up she's going to take a gap year because of COVID, and she wanted to have a good year back at university. So
yeah, good. I've got 6:59 on my computer. So.
Hi, Gravity.
Hey, how you doing, Councilor Deandrad?
Very well. Wow, this agenda was huge.
Yeah.
Hard to keep up.
Yeah. Corporate Officer, are we ready to go on your end?
yes, Mr. Mayor, all ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is a regular meeting of Council for September 15, 2020. And I acknowledge that we're meeting on the Squamish traditional territory. I'd like to also welcome back our youth counselor, Gravity Grenard. Gravity last year was our backup youth counselor, and this year she's our lead youth counselor, or the council representative. So welcome, Gravity. Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask council for a resolution to approve the agenda. Councillor Lumley, Councillor Kroll, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. First item is to adopt the minutes of September 15 and adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 1st. If I could, one motion to adopt both those sets of minutes. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Deandrad, thank you. All in favor of adoption of those minutes? Thank you. They're adopted. So any business arising from the minutes, councillors? Okay, seeing none, we'll go directly then to delegations and petitions. And we have two delegations tonight. First one is Kim Stevens, the Executive Director, Partnership for Water Sustainability in BC. Mr. Stevens. Yeah. Kim, I see you're no longer on mute. We can't see you, but.
Okay. Mayor Beamish, yes, thank you for the opportunity to make this virtual presentation. Council.
A little louder, Kim, please.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation, virtual presentation to council. How's that?
You're still pretty quiet there. Will your speaker go up?
It's on maximum.
Okay, well, we'll listen with our best ears then.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just be aware that it is a stress for us to hear you.
Alrighty then.
Yeah,
okay. Well, I will speak loudly.
Well, welcome to our council chambers.
Yes. Yeah. Mayor Beamish, thank you for this opportunity to make the virtual presentation to council. And my purpose tonight is to honor the town with a framed champion supporter letter of recognition. And while the presentation is virtual, the framed letter is real. And in fact, it's in your office or in City Hall currently. So you'll be able to inspect it at your leisure. And in terms of why the presentation, well, it's to recognize the fact that the support by the town contributes to the success of the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative. And this is a unique mechanism for intergovernmental collaboration. And, you know, what do you know or wonder about the partnership? Well, I know that in terms of our weekly water bucket e-newsletters, which we resumed this today with our first of the season, that you're all rated as 4-star readers. So I thank you for that and for following it. And just to give you the quick synopsis in terms of the partnership being a non-profit society that delivers services in collaboration with government, and originated as an intergovernmental partnership some 20 years ago. And the partnership embraces shared responsibility and is the hub for a convening for action network in the local government setting, and delivers the water sustainability action plan through partnerships and collaboration. And so the partnership plays a bridging role among provincial government, local governments, and community stewardship sectors. And our mantra is develop tools, develop talent, and focus on outcomes. So enough of the background. Returning to the purpose of the presentation, and on behalf of the board of directors of the Partnership for Water Sustainability, we are pleased to
There's your volume's just come up, Kim.
Oh, good. I can stop yelling. The town, we're pleased to recognize the town as a champion supporter of the partnership. And this designation recognizes individuals whose enduring commitment, and I emphasize that phrase, enduring commitment, enables the partnership to foster and support collaborative leadership in the local government setting. In particular, we appreciate that the town of Gibsons has supported the partnership in a number of ways. Collaboration between the town and the partnership dates back to 2013, and within 4 years, a working relationship had evolved into formal membership in the partnership, and the town is now represented on the partnership leadership team in the person of Emmanuel Machado, your CAO. I think what is really important to us is that the town has pioneered an approach to natural asset management which aligns with the mission of the partnership, and this synergy reinforces our respective efforts to change how local governments view and value ecological assets and establish budgets for their maintenance and management. I really want to emphasize that the town of Gibson really did change the conversation in British Columbia on this topic, because I can recall so well in 2014 when the town passed the annual report, and you included a statement by the accounting firm about recognizing natural assets, and that was such a huge and defining moment in this province. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned the Georgia Basin Interregional Education Initiative, which is also known by the acronym IREI. Well, the town is actively contributing to the success of the program, and this program provides local governments with a mechanism to collaborate, share outcomes, and cross-pollinate experience. And participating regions include the 4 regional districts on the east coast of Vancouver Island, as well as Metro Vancouver. So all in all, the population within the Georgia Basin represents some 75% of British Columbia's population. Also really important to us is that the town has acted on behalf of the partnership and the Georgia Basin program to apply for grants from UBCM as well as from FCM. And this type of support is tangible, and it makes a material difference to the effectiveness of the partnership in carrying out our mission. And so my final kind of bullet here is that the town's support is a linchpin for the partnership's ability to implement our program right now for mainstreaming EAP, and that's the acronym for the Ecological Accounting Process. And EAP provides local governments with a methodology and metrics to calculate the financial value of land within stream setback zones. So in summary and in conclusion, as a champion supporter, you are a pretty distinguished company. Previously, we have recognized 5 regional districts and some 13 municipalities as champion supporters, and the municipalities range all the way from the town of Comox to the city of Surrey. And so on that note, Mayor Beamish, that concludes my presentation.
Kim, thank you very much. And on behalf of council, I thank you. I will accept this award on behalf of council, but it is a recognition of our staff, a recognition of the work our CAO and our staff have done in this very important area. We came here 2 years ago and we are continually being educated in terms of natural assets management. And it is, I agree, a true feather in the cap of the town of Gibsons, all the work that is being done, and the recognition that we get from outside the community. At some point, I hope that that will be also recognized as strongly within the community. We still have work to be done in that area. I also acknowledge that you've got the upcoming workshops on November 19th, 26th, and December 3rd. I plan to register for those and look forward to that process as well. Anytime we can learn more about natural asset management and what is happening in other areas is valuable to us all. So thank you also for the work that you do and in your programs. And I'll turn it over to council. Does council have any comment or anything like to add at this time? Councilors, anything? Okay. See nothing, Kim. I thank you very much for your time and thank you very much for joining us in our virtual Gibsons Council meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And CAO, thank you very much as well, staff. So further in similar conversation in vein, I'm going to now move to our next presenter, and that's Graham Starsedge, Director of Development and Programs for the Gibsons Marine Education Society. And he will talk about the Healthy Harbor Project Plan 2020. Now, Graham, welcome.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you well. Yes, thank you.
Okay, look, I can start my video. Okay,
Thanks.
and then I think I'm going to be able to share my screen. Hi, everybody. Bit
Yeah.
weird in COVID times. Glad to see so many familiar faces, though. Yes, this does follow nicely with Kim's presentation. So thank you first for the endorsement of the town for the 4-year partnership in our Healthy Harbor project, which does follow up and support the municipal natural asset initiative the town is going through. And it does other things as well, advance education and solve some real challenges that you have in the community. So I'm going to try to figure out how to share my screen. And then I'm going to give you a very short presentation in a slideshow. So if somebody, no, I just had it open. Speaker view. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. Are you guys seeing it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. From beginning. Okay. You guys are familiar with this picture of the eelgrass bed. So this is our September 2020 update. Reminder to those that are watching maybe on YouTube, it's an environmental community partnership. You know, we have a vision, Gibsons Community Building Society and the Gibsons Marine Education Center Society, which is similar to the vision of the town, which is a healthy and vibrant harbor. And I've been met with the CAO, and we've kind of flushed out more from our pilot last year. There's 3 real focuses for the Healthy Harbor project. And I'll use those focuses to frame the work we did last year in the pilot and the work that we'll be doing this year. And we'll use those for the upcoming years as well. So the first focus is evidence gathering, right? You can't make good spatial and resource and management decisions without knowing what's there, and it's hard to know what's there underwater. So we do our data collection and surveying, mapping and reporting, and then you guys have access to that information and the community has access to it. The second focus is policy recommendation, right? So we're out there, we're looking around, and we're able to say, hey, if you wanted to accomplish these goals with input from the council, then this is our take on it and our suggestions. And that's an iterative process and can go back and forth. And the third is an ongoing element, which is the education and monitoring. So going back to the first one with the evidence gathering, when we do our data collection, we establish transects, which allows for a long-term baseline monitoring of specific areas within the town of Gibson's water lot lease, right? So, and we also when we have done the monitoring, it produces a report, which then becomes knowledge which we can transfer back to the community. We do it through community education, which includes adult and youth programs. And we're going to be in this 4-year program, we're able to go back to the same sites. We'll start that this year. We will be going to Armours, but in probably in 2 years, we'll be going back to the Breakwater, and then we can make evaluation on the possible changes in the ecosystem, which may have occurred through the other projects, which you'll hear about, like restoration activities. So in the 2019 pilot, we did some evidence gathering. We did the Breakwater biophysical survey. So I think you guys can see my mouse, right? We dove around in this area. We did debris mapping because the debris was impacting the eelgrass. We looked at the impacts of moorings, if they had impacts to the eelgrass or not. And we made some recommendations. Some moorings were negatively impacting the eelgrass beds. We recommended exclusion zones, areas where you couldn't have moorings. And we recommended looking at the moorings in the Armours Beach area and doing extending a project to do a biophysical survey, an eelgrass survey there. We established our baseline transects in the Breakwater for our long-term monitoring, and we produced some video that we've used for education programs and for also we hosted a speaker on eelgrass in our last year in our climate action speaker conference. So that was sort of the first go at it, and we were really excited, and now we have a second go at it. So our 2020 objectives, you'll see 2 colored elliptical circles there. These maps, by the way, are those maps that are part of the Howe Sound Marine Reference Guide report, courtesy of Fiona Betty. And we can't accomplish all of the work in this 1 year, so we've broken up Armours into 2 zones. And we're going to start in the blue zone, and we're going to do an eelgrass and biophysical assessment. We are going to, if there's moorings that are in the eelgrass there, we'll be measuring their impact. If we find debris, which is in that eelgrass beds, then we'll map that for further restoration activities. And also, and this is in both areas, so both the Armours area and the Breakwater area, we're going to ground truth potential mooring exclusion zones. So what I mean by that is create a practical line on a map of the zone which you should not moor in, because there's several different reports for different depths of moorage. But to actually pragmatically approach this problem, we're going to provide a recommendation of how that could be done in a sort of a harm reduction model. What can we do now immediately? And then later, as we move on in the future, we can make further recommendations for moving the exclusion zone out. I mean, one of the things is, if you look at these contours here, where I'm holding my mouse, that's a 5-meter contour, and this is a 10-meter contour. And if you were to follow the most stringent practices, you would have an exclusion zone that would be out here, but the beds are only here. So we have to also balance the impacts we have to navigation and balance the impacts we have to harbor use. So we'll come together and present our findings and take it from there. I also, kind of a pet project that I like to start out of this work is a harbor user guide. As we talk about other managements of the harbor and moving mooring around and different applications, I would like our staff to come up with a kind of a document or a pamphlet that could be presented to users of the harbor. This might be 2 or 3 years out, but I think the work should start here. We'll be doing our collection and releases in the end of October, and we'll be introducing a healthy harbor display at the aquarium. So that will be a good talking point for the whole community. And we also, since our last work, we have achieved our Coast Scientific Diving Program status. That's the Canadian Association of Underwater Science. And we're going to continue to develop that program, because that program will allow the divers that we train, hopefully, and this may be 2 or 3 or 4 years off, to continue to do long-term monitoring studies all throughout the water lot lease, which is a really cool initiative that ties in with the eco assets, but also ties in with harbor management. If you look at it, oh, that shouldn't do that. Okay, if you look at our work plan, we're actually starting the work on this, coming up on this Thursday. carry over to next Tuesday, weather permitted, smoke, I don't know, other 2020 disasters. Expect the reporting early November. Would like to present in council in December and tie it up for 2020. And now I want to talk to you about the impacts of your project and how your funding's been supporting us. So on October 16th, our dive team, our Coast dive team, will be out completing a subtitle cleanup of the Eelgrass bed, which is south of the Breakwater. So with the maps we had last year and the report we generated, we were able to, with the town's endorsement, make a pitch to the Pacific Salmon Foundation for $5,000 in funding, and which we received, and which will allow us to pay for the boat and the garbage disposal. And we're going to go out there and clean up the things that we can clean up by hand. And we're going to do that in partnership with our volunteers that will walk up and down the Breakwater. And we still have some challenges with COVID and how that's all going to work out. And Councillor Kroll, I will talk to you about it, and we can, this will be a fun community building activity where we can do a waste audit after, and then we will have made one positive step towards improving the productivity of the Eelgrass bed there. I mean, it's already pretty good, but there's areas where it could be better. And then what's really exciting is tomorrow, Kevin and I, Kevin's our dive safety officer, and many of you know him, are meeting with Fiona Beattie and the Sea Change Marine Conservation Society, and Nikki Wright will be calling in. So they also have some funding from Pacific Salmon Foundation, and we've been working in collaboration with them. And the items that we can't remove with our capacity on the 16th of October, they will come back later in October, and they're going to bring in a larger boat and take a crack at those. So this is like making positive headway on improving that area right near the Breakwater, which we know is heavily impacted by human activity, and also gain some public endorsement, hopefully, and some community appetite to keep managing and maintaining the ecological and social uses of our harbor, right? And I think that it'll be really exciting. So it's a really positive that's come out of this, the pilot from last year. Another pilot positive, and this is possibly a secondary benefit, not directly linked, is that the ESMAC team, our education coordinator, has been awarded the DFO education coordinator position for the Stream to Sea contract, which serves the Sunshine Coast. This was previously held by Diane Sanford, and many of you will know Diane Sanford. She approached us and endorsed us in our application. So I felt really confident, and she'll be doing some training with us. But this means that our education coordinator will be going is a loose term now, depending on what happens, to the classrooms all up and down the Sunshine Coast, and installing the incubators and doing the salmon in the classroom program. But this will tie back to community restoration work that we're hoping to achieve in the bigger conservation picture of our society, that then produces knowledge and capacity, which feeds back to our education programs, which then feed into our community aquarium and this asset in the town that has ecotourism and community engagement and placemaking and a couple other elements in it. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Graham, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I'm very pleased to see some action being taken versus just studies all the time. So the debris removal and the working on that project this coming weeks is going to be very interesting and educational for us. It'll be interesting to see exactly what is down there. And if you find any interesting 20th century artifacts, it will be interesting
Yeah,
to
I
see.
suppose.
That's right. So thank you. And really appreciate all the work you do and the people that work with you on this project. And I'll turn it over to Council. Is there any questions they might have of you? Council Dean Drad. Yeah. Sound, please.
Thank you, Graham. Quite excited to see the follow-up from last year's work. When you talk about adult education, can you expand a little bit? Because the kids' education, I think I picture a little bit better, because you have schools coming to the aquarium, right? I'm not sure what's going to happen this year, but I'm sure there will be some figuring out to do. But what exactly does it involve adult education?
Sure. I hope you guys can all hear me. So this is something that our board is really excited about. I mean, when you really look at the demographic of Gibsons, it's largely 50 plus, right? I, of course, have to try to make my budget work and make our project sustainable. So there's lots of funding for K-12 work. So that's where I focus most of my time. But I've been approached by two of my board members, David Marmarick, who you may know is the lead or the senior scientist for ESSA Technologies, which does work with the town, and Mary Natras, and she's the founder of Sustainability Partners. They're both Gibsons residents, and so they're incredibly connected to world-leading experts in environmental and sustainability. And what they propose to do is in November, December, January, and February this year to re-up from the Climate Action Speaker Series, which is funded by the Environment and Climate Change Canada, and bring in a speaker it'll be at night, but it'll be virtually at night. That's free of cost. There's no money making in this project. This is just their goodwill and TELUS Business Connect platform, which we use for the gala, and getting together great minds and sharing information. I have contacted people like Aroha Miller. She was the chief editor and author for much of the newly released Ocean Watch report, which is super exciting. If you guys haven't checked out Ocean Wise's Ocean Watch report for Howe Sound 2020, you must do that. I'm hoping I've been in contact with Samaya Jardy. She's the director for the Department of Language and Cultural Affairs at Squamish, because we're trying to do a traditional knowledge integration into the center, and we're hoping maybe we can get a Squamish speaker to come and talk about traditional food uses from the ocean environment. And so the theme of it will be healthy oceans, healthy communities. So last year we had Nikki Wright, who is the executive director for Sea Change Marine Conservation Society, come and do a program on eelgrass. We had about 45 people in attendance. And then that was followed up the next month by Brian Riddell doing the Pacific salmon speech. Like, he did a presentation. It's a very challenging topic to talk about, but he was the chief executive officer for Pacific Salmon Foundation. He's also on our technical advisory committee. So that's the kind of like adult education programs would be virtual, they'd be at night, and they would be free of charge or by donation to just keep the community engaged, keep the community learning. And then, as we grow and we can open our space back up, I'd like to host workshops and facilitations and, more dialogue. That's still my dream. Of the market in combination with the Marine Education Center, like when the election cycle comes back up, as it was last time when we had the Green Forum with all the candidates. That was a fantastic thing to host in the market. So that kind of stuff, that's what I'm envisioning with adult education. We do have the Sunshine Coast Community Foundation provided us with a grant to do what's called the Volunteer Environmental Education Program. So have just hired a co-op student. She starts tomorrow. And what that means is that we've asked for funds to help train our volunteers. Many of those are adults. In fact, majority of them are on environmental education so they can become better interpreters. And so the themes that we're using are the themes that relate to the natural assets that are in the Howe Sound area. So glass sponge reefs, eelgrass, sea stars, and rockfish, right? And then they'll expand into a deeper dive and then do some kind of like a class project that takes place over several months. So that's another avenue that anybody that wants to, volunteer and sign up will probably put an ad in Coast Reporter and, make it available to the community. Generally, we draw people just from the immediate community, and I feel like I'm going on a long time and you guys probably have other things on the agenda tonight, so I'll just end there. But come into the center if you want to talk to me or anybody wants more information.
Thank you. Councillor Ludwig.
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend Graham and the Gibsons Community Building Society for everything you've done with the market and the Marine Education Center. It's really inspiring. Like having, worked with you on the committee right from the beginning and at a time when it was just an idea and a concept, you guys bring it from that to an actual physical center, and now expanding beyond that into the community, networking with all the different facets and programs and governments. it's awesome. You guys are doing an amazing job. I'm really impressed with what you guys have been doing with the resources that council's awarded you, and I just keep up the good work. It's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Illyria. I mean, we owe it to you as well. I remember you chairing a very important committee. So,
Thank you.
Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Echoing Councillor Ladwig's thoughts. I was just wondering, do you think part of at the end of the study might be some suggestions or some framework for, I think all of us couldn't help notice the amount of boats that were anchoring, tying up to mooring buoys. So if we're going to do all this research and study and have all this eelgrass, if we're going to protect it, is there some maybe suggestion or some framework that you're going to bring that could help with like the increase of traffic? Obviously, boating, mooring, anchoring, that's all part of the economy, I guess, in the summertime. But it would seem a shame to I guess not take that extra step and make sure that people are not just abusing that privilege on top of the eelgrass. So I don't know if there's going to be maybe some recommendations come forward how to protect this from the boating traffic as well.
Yeah, I mean, in my dream world, I believe in harm reduction. So we have a vet who's part of, anyway, I could go on. Craig Stevens, an amazing guy. People are going to keep damaging the environment. So what we need to do right now is have interventions like you would if you had an addict. So our suggestions are to create an exclusion zone that we can as immediately as possible implement to prevent further damage to directly in the eelgrass beds. Now, we have to be phased in our approach because you can't just say, okay, you can't park on the whole harbor because we need to use the harbor too, right? And then incrementally over time, by basically piloting and observing the interactions, we can start making different management decisions. So we're not going to get it right. We can't let perfect be the enemy of the good. We have to start making some headway and be open-minded and have generous assumptions. If, there's clearly the people's livelihoods are impacted and people's use of the harbor, we need to take that all into consideration. So like, again, when I was mentioning the harbor user guide, if we can partner with the town, hopefully, and create a bigger ask, a grant ask, maybe to Highland Coastal Economic Trust to get some moorage equipment and find a commercial contractor to install it. And we've delineated these exclusion zones. And then we need to be out there educating people in the summer about them. So, maybe there'll be an online user guide, maybe it's an app or a QD, maybe it's on the moorings. I know the town has some visions of the moorings maybe being for rent and day use, and that's sort of further down the road, right? But that's what we'd like to see. One of the things we're really cognizant of is like maintaining the access in and out of the harbor, like the channels, right, to the day use float on the north side of the harbor, and also to the actual access to the government harbor and the public marina there. So, but I'd personally love to see like improve the kind of swimming access to what I call Mermaid Beach, which is that beach you can walk to from the market, and find ways for our summer camps to have little snorkel camps and to train divers out there, the paddle boards, that kind of stuff. But it has to be safe, right? And it has to be balanced. And that's a tricky thing because there's lots of opinions. And, what we're trying to do is gather information so we can you guys ultimately can make the decisions that will work for the town. And what it's going to take some back and forth, but I feel so strongly that the Gibsons is a perfect petri dish, right? There's lots of intelligence, there's lots of academics, there's lots of privilege. We can be world leaders and actually chart a course that can create a vibrant, sustainable community that other communities just can't do. And this council and the staff and the residents of Gibsons are ready to do that. So it's a really exciting time.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Thank you very much for the presentation, Graham. You sort of hit on what I was going to say is I've been speaking with Kevin Swoboda, looking at opportunities to create partnerships within the community to address something that you just touched on briefly was proper moorage, so you don't have chains dragging on the bottom scouring. That they're using the mooring buoys and floats to keep the chains up, and the floats are proper and creating some no anchor zones.
Yeah.
You know, one of the worst problems out there is people coming in, dropping an anchor, and then the wind comes up and they drag their anchor and they just do untold damage. It's sort of heartbreaking. So I think there's a great opportunity, you know, to create some community partnerships to help fund some of this, because it's in everyone's interest. And just thanks for the great work.
Well, thank you again, Graham, and thank you, as I say, for Council says, for all the work you're doing, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and the results of this work. It's very exciting, and I agree that we are the opportunity to be an example to a lot of communities and to be the envy of a lot of communities, which I believe we already are, but even more so. So thank you again very much. And another time we can talk about a future relationship with pods and the research they're going to be doing between yourselves and them. So that'd be a good opportunity as well. So thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Good night. Okay, Council, we're carrying on with our agenda, and item 6 tonight is inquiries, and this is inquiries for items that are on the agenda for consideration tonight, with the exception, however, of the tree bylaw, which we will be considering because we made that subject of a public inquiry, and we will be voting a little later in the meeting on the next steps on that item. So, Council or corporate officer, do you have anybody with their hands up?
At this time, I'll ask anyone in the meeting as an attendee, if you have a question for council, if you use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, we'll turn on your audio and video. I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll carry on with the agenda under section 7, which is committee reports. First part is a series of recommendations that have come out of recent committees. So we'll just go down through those recommendations. And first, that the minutes of the Special Planning and Development Committee meeting held September 8th be received. Motion, Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of receipt. Thank you very much. Development permit form and character, DP 2020-16 for 1000 Venture Way, and that the recommendation that council authorize the issuance of DP 2020-16 for 1000 Venture Way. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, further discussion on that by anybody? All in favor? Thank you, that's approved. Development permit for form and character for townhouse at 741 Hillcrest Road. And this one, the recommendations of the covenant BK 409675 dated December 1996 be discharged from the title of Hillcrest Road. I'd like a motion for that one first, please. Councillor Ladwig, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Okay. The second one and the third one, that the Plan and Development Committee recommend that the or so that the developer bring forward revised plans reducing the massing for DP 2020-10 for Hillcrest Road, and further the staff bring forward a report with options for rear lane access for public access, including vehicle travel and active travel behind Hillcrest Road by requesting rights of way at the time of development, including rezoning, subdivision, development permits, or building permits. This came out of the conversation, long conversation that we had on this. Basically, what we've asked the developer to do is come back with a revised plan and looking at the access. So someone would like to move those two recommendations, Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade. Any further discussion, councillors? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. 714, 7.1.4 rather, Poplar Lane, Davis Road, OCP zoning amendment, survey results and consideration of second reading. And the recommendation is that the OCP amendment 98525 to change the land use designation and development permit area for Davis and Poplar Lane be forwarded to council, which we're doing. And the zoning amendment be for the rezone of Davis Bay area to a new RM7 zone to allow 3-family dwelling and extend the garden suite be forwarded to council for second reading, which you're doing. And further, that electronic public hearing be scheduled for 5:30 p.m. on October 6, 2020, as authorized under Ministerial Order M192/2020 and in accordance with Section 465 of the Local Government Act. So these are, you're going to see on council agenda later tonight. So I want to move receipt of those recommendations. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. Councillor Crowell, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. That's approved. Proposed anti-noise bylaw, the anti-noise bylaw before the council for first, second, third. That's happening. And the bylaw, enforcement bylaw be forwarded to council. Let's have receipt of those recommendations as well, please. Councillor Crowell, Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And the building bylaw again be forwarded to council for first, second, and third, and the bylaw enforcement amendment bylaw be forwarded to council for first, second, and third. So receipt of those recommendations. Thank you. You will see those later this evening. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, good. And finally, the committee of the whole, September 6, 2015. And this is regarding the Gibsons pool. This is a recommendation that came out of the meeting earlier today. And the recommendation was that council write a letter to the Sunshine Coast Regional District urging them to reconsider the continued closure of the Gibsons pool and asking the SCRD to provide information regarding associated costs of pool operations. Now, this arose, as council recalls, and just for the benefit of the public watching, from the number of emails and letters that were received and comments that council received about the closure of the pool, identifying health maintenance and recovery, travel costs, social interaction, and fairness as issues related to the concerns by people for wanting to have the Gibsons pool open here. Another thought came up in our discussion was the whole idea of sending people down to another community to go for a swim and potentially exchanging COVID germs back and forth. So between communities. So that arose with the result that council did have a thorough discussion of this issue and with the resulting resolution. Councillor Lumley.
I'm just wondering if the recommendation's strong enough as far as the letter. It seems like asking for the associated costs. I mean, that's like a step, like that's one step, but I think that from our discussions at the committee as a whole was like, okay, like how can we take care of these associated costs? Like, can we assist in these associated costs? Like you had provided suggestions, but I don't know if you want to skip to.
I think knowing the cost clearly and having a good understanding of the cost firstly is important to us before we step in with saying, well, we could help with a portion of that with the capital cost, for example.
As long as with the costs that aren't associated with just opening the pool, because we would have opened it anyway, COVID or not. That's my only concern, is that hey,
right.
It costs this much to open the pool. We would have done it anyway.
Yeah, it's the capital costs for
the added costs. You know?
That's right, the added costs. So, yeah. Well, let's see what those costs are, and then we can make an approach if need be, if we are needed to step back in with some consideration of assistance of those costs. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Since we're all talking about Councillor D'Andrade and seconded by Councillor Crowell. And any further comment on that, councillors? I know we had a thorough discussion of this afternoon. Certainly very empathetic towards and supporting of all of the letters of concern that we did receive on this issue. Okay, Councillor Ladwig.
as long as we understood what Councillor Lumley was getting at, because I think he's making a good point. It's not the cost of running the pool, it's the added cost that we're looking for.
Yeah, the added cost we're looking for. We'll make that clear. We're going to do a covering letter with this, and strongly worded covering letter. That's what is expected there. Okay, so call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. That's approved. Thank you, Council. Move to administration reports. And first of all, I'd like a motion to receive all the reports. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of receipt of all of the reports tonight? Thank you. Received. So the first one then is the annual report, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to move Elizabeth over as well. So I'm going to be pretty brief with the presentation of this, as the annual report and the report has been out there for a couple of weeks now. But the community charter requires council to prepare an annual report and make it available to the public prior to June 30th in each year. This year, in response to COVID-19, Ministerial Order M159 allowed municipalities to delay this date to October 31st, 2020. The report must then be presented to council at least 14 days after it has been made available to the public at an annual meeting or council meeting. And the Town of Gibson's 2019 annual report was made available to the public on Friday, August 28th, and is presented to council today, September 15th, for your approval. And I do have Elizabeth here as well, if council has any questions on the annual report.
I'm just waiting for Elizabeth to show up. Sorry. Yeah. Are we going to see you, Elizabeth?
I'm not sure, but we'll hear her.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to comment from my perspective, it's a very good annual report. I certainly appreciate it. Very easily read. I like that kind of the introductory pages of Gibsons at a glance. Very helpful and very good information for us all to be using and referencing in conversation with people. So thank you again very much. I also appreciate all the pictures in the report. Pictures say 1,000 words sometimes, as they say. So once again, the report gives everybody a good overview. And these reports started about 2005, 2006. Prior to that, there was not a requirement for annual reports. We often did them, but there was not a requirement and there was no consistency between them. And now we have a good history report so people can go back and look at the community. And I thank you for carrying that history on, carrying it forward. So Councillor Kroll, you.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. No, I just wanted to commend Elizabeth and staff. I love the Gibsons at a glance. I deliberately sort of put bookmarks in sections that I thought that were really good, and the Gibsons at a glance is great. The thing out there that really caught my eye was population 4,943 with an asterisk estimated by the BC statistics, but scary number. Just really great. It's got a good flow to it. As you said, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and it sort of really helps them break up the masses of text and just make it a really good presentation. I'm sure Councillor Lumley, with his background in finance, will appreciate the latter part of the report, but everything up to that point I thought was great. And kudos to staff. Great job. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Deirdre.
Well, I won't repeat. I agree with both councillors, and I actually appreciate the collection of taxes breakdown, because we have the impression that, I used to have the impression in the past, the very past, and then you learn that the taxes that Gibsons collect is not necessarily Gibsons. So I think this was really good. One recommendation, if I may, as I'm flipping the report, I wish there was a page that talks about engagement, which is our first priority, that incentive people how to get. And I almost missed the page. My last
yeah
got stuck. And finally, somehow I saw it, I thought, oh, I'm glad, but I almost wish that this was kind of on the 4th page, you know, you have the cover, and as soon as you put the vision, you have the table. And then, because I think what the message here is, we have several ways that even with your busy time, you can participate. So that was my only thing. I basically almost missed. It was interesting that I found at the very page, but other than that, I think was awesome and very learning opportunity for anyone that, you know, wants to know in any time. And so congratulations to everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no further input, there is 2 recommendations. Well, first of all, was there any public input? It says consideration of public input on the Town of Gibson's annual report. Was there any public input?
Not that I received. I did post a link to the annual report several times on Facebook, but there were virtually no comments. So I didn't receive anything.
Corporate officer, is it appropriate to ask at this time if any of the public on air would like to have any input into the annual report? That's specifically limited question. Thank you.
Yes. And I'll ask anybody who's in the meeting as an attendee, if you'd like to make a comment or question on the annual report, you could use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen. We'll turn on your audio and video. I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, then the lack of input is still input. So the recommendation that council consider public input on the Town of Gibson's annual report, and that the Town of Gibson's annual report be approved. Somebody like to move those recommendations? Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you very much for that. And all in favor? Thank you very much. And we'll look forward to next year's annual report, which should be extremely interesting. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah. Okay, our next report that we have received is the Director of Corporate Services. It's the Youth Representative Terms of Reference and amendments to the Terms of Reference. And Director of Corporate Services, would you like to bring this forward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this report is pretty brief. The purpose of the report is to present an amended terms of reference for the youth representative to council. We have learned of the past 2 years of the programs that it would work a little bit better with a couple of. We've included those in the attached draft amended terms of reference, and these include changes which reflect lessons learned from the previous 4 youth counselors. And these amendments include specificity over the school grades of the representatives chosen, and further clarity that the alternate youth representative will move into the role of youth representative the following year without the need to enter into another selection process.
Thank you. And then that's what we have proposed, and that's what we are following this year. So that, and then another one, I think, was 610 an ad, Lindsay?
Yes, we had overlooked the ability for the youth representative or alternate to leave the program, and so we just built that in.
That's right. We did have the right for us to rescind the appointment, but we didn't have the right for them to walk away from us. So now that they can actually choose to not continue. And and I think those recommendations reflect what we intended to do to begin with, was to have that kind of the rotation between the member, the representatives, starting grade 11, moving to the grade 12 position, and that allows us now to go out into this new year and to advertise within the school system for a grade 11 representative to join Gravity. Gravity, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it, when you're applying for these things, you never are completely sure of what the intention is of the people who set up the program. So it's great that there have been some specifications made. So, and those are things I was wondering myself when I applied for the position. So,
Good. Well, I know that on the night that we swore you in when you were first appointed, and I mentioned to your mother afterwards that this was 2 years. There was some kind of, oh, really, 2 years sort of thing. So that we hadn't made that clear, and now we're making it clear for the next person. So
Yes.
thank you for that.
Good to hear. Thank you.
So the recommendation is that the attached amended, what is that, the amended youth representative to council terms of reference be adopted. I'm going to drop the word attached out of that because they won't be attached to the recommendation going forward. So that, so someone would like to move that? Councillor Crowell, thank you. And Councillor DeAndrade, thank you. Further discussion, Council? Councillor DeAndrade, thank you.
Yeah, I would like just to add, I'm really pleased with this, where we came up, because one of my big concerns at the beginning, it was choosing someone to be full-time and the other person would be just there, and then next year it might not be selected. And I think this gives a very important continuity. And at the same time, if somehow the student council doesn't, for any reason, cannot continue or does not want to continue, there's still a chance for 2 new people. But I think this may make the program more sustainable, more respectful, even to and Gravity, to the alternate student. And Gravity, I think, experienced that, but in a way it was really very interesting because she had the assurance that she would take the position next year. So you have vested interest in taking this job as seriously as the chosen, the main, well, the youth representative. So yeah, thanks for coming with this amendment. I think it made completely sense.
Thank you. Okay, see no more comments. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we will go out and advertise, and Gravity, you can let your peers know the school that this is coming up and look for the opportunity. That'd be very good. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, item 9, is council reports. And I'll let council take this opportunity now to talk about any matters that they'd like to raise. I'm just going to say on behalf of council this time, this week and next week are very busy weeks with regards to UBCM. And all of council are not participating. They're all going to be hearing various things. And as we go through this week, I know that there's about 15 meeting opportunities, and of which I think I'm involved in 8 of them. And I know Councillor Crowell and Councillor Ladwick are involved in them. Next week with UBCM itself, it's going to be a very interesting virtual process for the whole week. The only thing we're going to miss out on are the dinners and receptions, which is always a highlight of UBCM, so that we'll simply have to eat alone. But very important, we have a number of issues going forward that we are raising ourselves in meetings. One is the RCMP, the transition we are going to have to make likely next year to a responsibility for RCMP. Another issue is how we can better protect the watershed above the town and the aquifer recharge area. Been talking with Flynn Rowe on that. And the third one has to do with Ministry of Housing relative to the supportive housing and the supports, more particularly for people who are going into supportive housing in our community. We want to make sure that it's not just a matter of putting people in homes, it's a matter of also ensuring that they have the support in the community to be successful. And that's what we want to emphasize with the minister when we meet with them. Seychelles and the District of Seychelles, Regional District rather, have a number of issues as well. We are approaching this as Team Sunshine Coast. So we have invited Seychelles and Regional District to our meetings, and we are able to attend their meetings, which we have been doing. And our CIO is monitoring almost every meeting. So except where we are required to be elsewhere, we are preparing for and attending meetings online, on the phone actually. These ones are all conference call meetings. So that's what we've been doing and preparing for. There are other things. So this week, for example, I'm coming up on Friday, I'll be attending the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. participating in the swearing-in ceremony for 7 new directors of the Chamber of Commerce. And so that there are other things going on besides UBCM and other things that we're involved with so that they continue. So, anybody else like to add anything? Councillor Crowell, go ahead.
Just briefly, you mentioned the meetings in Team Sunshine Coast, and the first 2 meetings that I've been involved in, they've been very positive. And something you mentioned this afternoon at committee was, although it's not quite the same thing as meeting people in person, one of the aspects of the phone is that we probably do have a little more time. By the time you shuffle into a room and sit down and pass out cards and shake hands, as you mentioned this afternoon, right now it's as soon as the bell goes, everyone's in there, the presentation's done. And so far they've been really good exchanges. This morning, the meeting with the drug addiction and mental illness was really well done. On another something that happened just this past weekend was the Gibsons annual gala. And although I'm not the representative on Counsel to the Market, I got sort of sequestered to go in and help prep food. So it was an interesting event. The Market building only has a capacity un-COVID for 210 people. This year they had 244 people attend the gala, not only in Gibsons, there were people from as far away as San Francisco, Washington State, Greater Vancouver, and Toronto. So there were 244 tickets were purchased. We prepared just over 200 meals. There were a choice of entrees and vegan dishes and gluten intolerant. So it's tremendous kudos to the Market staff and volunteers who juggle this huge event. It was just the part we were in the kitchen from 9 to a little after 5, just plating meals nonstop. So it's and they were all beautifully packaged. For people who purchased meals, they got signature drink, choice of 3 entrees, and they were all packaged and off they went. So I believe you attended the event virtually, Mayor Beamish. So if there's anything you want to add, I didn't attend. So all I did was get the finger food.
I was going to mention that as well. I did attend. It was an excellent event. We attended a small house group. It was an opportunity, the first opportunity I've had in several years to put on my tux and dress up and pretend we were out at a fancy place for dinner. And we were at a fancy place for dinner. But the other bonus part of that is that there was opportunity to participate in the silent auction, a regular auction, and to buy raffle tickets. My investment in raffle tickets was $125 for 3 tickets. We were the first draw out of the box, and we won a night at the Wedgwood Hotel in Vancouver and a helicopter ride from Vancouver to Victoria return. So we have 2 mini holidays coming up for Heather and I, which I can assure you I'm looking forward to. So that so it was very good, and so I look forward to it. Councillor Crowell?
Just one other thing, kudos to the Market for pulling off the event, but the other aspect of the community who really does deserve recognition and service are the business owners of the community who, probably, yes, Councillor Lumley, I was getting towards you, in some cases, probably the people couldn't afford to attend the event, but they supported it by donating prizes. Local artists donated artwork. So, even though you don't get to sit down and eat the food or put on your tux, a lot of a grateful thanks and gratitude has to go to the business community who supported the event. And so I noticed I looked through the raffle prizes and silent auction prizes, and I noticed that Councillor Lumley's business offered several opportunities for people to enjoy Smitty's Oyster Bar.
Councillor Lumley.
Not so much I don't know if it's a council report, but even just publicly, I think the council should really congratulate all the businesses in Gibsons for like personally, I can tell you, this summer was a grind. You had to spend money, implement COVID procedures, and then police them constantly. And I know every business I went to, that's what they were doing. And it was just, I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but it's just no fun. You know, telling people where to stand, line up here, don't do that, don't, like, it was like I was like a daycare, you know, person. It was like trying to you know, herding, like the herding cats, like our kids. It was like, so, and I know everyone did their best and people got through it. So I just like congratulate all the small businesses that adhered to it. And I heard a lot of good feedback from a lot of customers saying that they were very impressed where they went around the town and people were really taking it seriously and doing a great job. So people should be commended for that.
That's good to hear. And I will take that theme and express that to the Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting when I meet with them on Friday, and follow through with that. And perhaps CIO, we can talk about putting something onto the website of appreciating the work of the businesses under our COVID part of the website. So that's it for council reports. We'll move on to correspondence. And we have 4 items of correspondence to do. The first one is from Gord Schollenberg, Senior Manager, Community Relations, Fortis BC, Eagle Mountain Wood Fiber Gas Pipeline Project, notification of a request to extend the environmental assessment certificate. First of all, I'm going to ask that all the correspondence be received. You're there. So Councillor Kroll, thank you. Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor of receipt of the correspondence tonight? Thank you. Speaking to this one specifically, we did deal with this several weeks ago in terms of a letter that we sent to the Environmental Review Board. And I think that we should send a similar note. Be surprised if we didn't copy it to Fortis, but we should send a similar note to Fortis that we have passed a resolution from Council supporting an extension subject to Fortis assuring that they will follow the UN guidelines, environmental guidelines. I believe that was the wording, but we'll take a look at what we actually sent. I don't know if there's any more that we need to say than that. It was really piggybacking on the position that the District of Squamish took and supporting Squamish's position, who is obviously most directly impacted by this project. So does council have any other thoughts on this? Councilor Diendrad?
I haven't seen the letter, so it would be great if council could see the letter. I mean, probably it has already been sent, but I hope it has really specified the IPCC targets, right? Not only 45% by 2030, but 100% by 2050. And so, did you have a chance to? Did you write the letter?
It's some time ago. I'd have to refresh my memory on specifically what we said. I think it was probably May or June that we actually put that out. So we'll have to take a look at that. So I'll bring that letter back up. But I think that's the theme that we want to go with. So I think that we would respond to them in a similar vein as to the resolution we've already passed on this. So if council is in agreement with that, maybe a recommendation that we follow up with them with the previous position that we've expressed to the Environmental Review Board on this matter. Council would like to make a resolution of that. Councilor Diendrad, Councilor Kroll. Further discussion of that? All in favor? Thank you. That's approved. So, letter 10.2. This is from the information from the Honorable Claire Trevina, Minister of Transport and Information regarding BC Ferries funding. And the letter dated September 4th from Honorable Claire Trevina is in your package. I don't know if there's anything further that we need to do other than receive that, which we have done. Council have anything further to add, or if they want to comment on that? Okay, seeing nothing. Now, there is going to be a meeting with the minister on Friday, I believe it is, relative to BC Ferries. So this will be discussed that time. Thank you. And the next one is Justin Byers, BC Housing, Gibson Supportive Housing Community Advisory Committee. Everybody recalls that when the supportive housing project was planned and discussed, the concept of the supportive housing committee was also discussed. So they are now asking that council designate a member of council to sit on the community advisory committee. They are going to be going out for advertising for members, Councillor Ladwig did express interest last fall in being on the point of this committee. And Councillor Ladwig, is that still your interest?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take on that role.
Okay, so if we could have a recommendation then that Councillor Ladwig be appointed to the Gibson Supportive Housing Community Advisory Committee, and that BC Housing be informed accordingly. So Councillor Crowell, I saw your hand up. Councillor Diendrad, thank you. Further discussion of this? Councillor Crowell first.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to do it, but something that, we need to look at moving forward, because, we're anticipating the supportive housing being open sometime, hopefully in early December, is getting a community action team sort of established, such as the one that you and I have been dealing with Seashelt. I know.
Yeah, can we hold that thought and then deal with this particular resolution and focus on the appointment of Councillor Ladwig? Councillor Lumley, do you have any comments on?
I was just going to ask, is this like a normal committee appointment? Like, is this going to be an annual appointment?
I'm not sure what the life of the advisory committee is. I'm not sure if it's a continuing committee. I know in some communities, the committees have disbanded after a few months. So we'll just have to wait and see if that's going to be an ongoing committee. They found that after the startup, the concerns were resolved and there was no further need for a committee. I think they've self-disbanded as opposed to being disbanded by housing. So that's so. Can we take a motion on this, and that's all in favor of Councillor Ladwig's appointment? Thank you. So Councillor Ladwig, thank you for taking that on. So David Crowell, Councillor Crowell, back to your thoughts on the community action team.
Well, I think it's been going over a year now that you and I've been attending the CAT committee meetings with respect to the supportive housing unit in Seashelt and the other sort of elements that sort of spin off out of it. So it's I think it's something we need to get up in the community. I've experienced personally as this unit has been going up, and I've just been there observing what's happening. There is still some community resentment towards the project, and I think I don't want to wait until people are moving in and we have problems. I'd rather that we're in a position to try and mitigate anything that comes up, be able to deal with it as it happens, and wherever possible mitigate anything that might evolve out of the supportive housing unit. So I think the sooner we can get a local CAT team functioning, the better.
I know that the CAT team is a Sunshine Coast CAT team, and that's how they're funded. Now, whether or not they would fund a Gibson's CAT team plus the Sunshine Coast team is something we'd have to talk with the province about. But I know the funding is for the coast, not just for Gibson, not just for Seashelt. That's where the focus has been, but we'll see. Yeah. So, and I think the community advisory committee would be able to provide some insight in that too, and the need for that type of resource. But appreciate that, Councillor Crowell.
Well, just in follow-up, I think, there is the group, Sunshine Coast Cat team, but I think, there needs to be some sort of feet on the ground here that can deal with issues here that, you can't wait for a monthly meeting in Seashell to get things resolved.
Yeah, we could certainly talk to the coordinator about that as to how that could be done. Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's going to be an interesting project. We'll be discussing this as well, as I mentioned, with the minister this week. And Seashell has already had raised issues around mental health issues and addiction issues in Seashell with the Minister of Health earlier today. So that that information, I believe you all got copied on her on the submission they made. I believe I sent it out earlier, but if not, I'll make sure that's done. Okay. And finally, we have the council reading file for the weeks ending August 31st and September 8, 2020. Anything arising from those, council? Councillor Kroll.
It's sort of, I'll say I'm as much as fault as anyone else. Sensitive material, and I do apologize to Gravity. I got all excited. I saw, an opportunity for students to attend UBCM, but we missed the deadline for it because it was, it was September 6th, the 9th that the registration had to be in for. So I don't, I guess it's just as soon as the reading file is available that, we pounce on it because it's opportunity lost. And I do apologize to student counselor Gennard. I just wanted to note, we had a reply back from Patricia Sturbies with an acknowledgement in our approach to how we were handling the Healing Forest project. So I think as an organization, they truly appreciated that we reached out to First Nations and have brought them into the process. It's what it's all about. So that's really important. The other thing I'd just note, there was a letter from Ken Carson with respect to 718 North Road, which has been the situation's been resolved till the end of March next year. So that's sort of a breath of everyone's heaved a sigh of relief there. And that's about all I had flagged.
Councilor Gennard, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think first I would like to acknowledge the letter from Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance, and they indicate their support to the initiative to have Charmant Creek's land designated as a park, since residents bear also use this area for travel. And we will talk more about that on the tree bylaw, because they talk about urban forest initiative. There's also a letter from August 31st. It's on the September 8th file, and is a resident on Ocean Mount, and they're talking about the starting of construction on Eaglesville development, and they brought some concerns. I just would like to hear from staff, perhaps the CEO or Director of Infrastructure, if they have addressed the concerns, because they talk about it's an area, and they make some suggestions in this regard as well. It's an area that there's no sidewalks, and there's a lot of elders that they walk, or people that have wheelchair. Just to avoid accidents, the construction will take several, perhaps more than 1 year or 2 years, who knows, 3 years. And so if I could hear from them, would be much appreciated.
Director of Infrastructure.
Yes, when they commence work on site, we will be directing them to be using Shaw Road and Ocean Mount as their main points of access. or hang on, Ulster Mountain, no, Inglis, sorry. So that's, I believe that's consistent with the concerns that were raised by the resident.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Council. And we'll go on our agenda now. The next item is the tree preservation bylaw, number 1282. This was the subject of the meeting that we had last night, the public hearing. And a lot of discussion last night, a lot of good discussion about it last night, and comments received from the public. And I believe there'll be a report coming forward, and Director of Infrastructure, are you bringing that forward at this time?
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor Beamish. So you have a report in front of you, and first off, I'd just like to mention that there are 3 additional resolutions that came through in a amended report, and those are the last 3 on the first page. That Council repeal policy 6.1, which is the old tree removal on private land, or sorry, public land, and to formalize the suggestion that both staff and I believe Council was also making in regards to reporting back in a period of about 6 months on the success of the implementation, as well as reporting on in our quarterly report as to the status of those trees. And I think what or the tree removal in town. And I think what you'll see is we'll actually have a natural asset section in our upcoming quarterly reports, just to keep you apprised of the work done by our new natural asset technician position. So moving through the report, and I will be getting to the public hearing as well. The purpose of the report is to update Council on their previous resolutions, and to provide the updated bylaw that reflects the edits brought forth by Council members at the previous meeting, as well as some minor staff edits that were made to the bylaw. I'm not going to go through each one of the edits, but the attached document, there's 2 tree bylaws. One highlights all the changes that were made, and the other one is the clean version, and we put the one with the edits in there just so that Council could easily spot the changes that were made to the bylaw. So those changes were adding a definition of specimen tree, and established an invasive tree species list, and excluding the removal of those invasive species that could become tree-like from any regulation regarding any regulation under the tree bylaw regarding removal, and regardless of the diameter. We further streamlined the process for dealing with hazardous trees, address when permits and permit fees are or not required, and as I mentioned, we made some minor editorial edits, including the removal of some clauses that overlap with development permits 1 and 2. The other piece, which was mentioned by Councillor Cole, was the National Healing Forest, and we had a meeting with a representative from the Squamish Nation, and I think that all the feedback that I had heard from both staff and Council was that it was a very positive, encouraging meeting, and right now that's in the hands of the Squamish as to how they want to see their involvement. We also did talk about the opportunities for public art, street naming, and storytelling in the town of Gibsons, and we will be hearing back from the Squamish in regards to those matters as well. So as far as communication, The location actually, or one of the proposed locations for the healing forest is in the White Tower Pond area. And as you know, we received a grant close on $1 million for the construction of that stormwater pond. And so that was put forward as a possible consideration for Squamish involvement and discussion on that. Additional communication. So we have created a web page, or more to the point, Elizabeth Quayle, our communication guru, has created a web page, and we're keeping that updated as time progresses. And there was some comments that we heard from the public hearing about that the bylaw wasn't easy to read, and we do recognize that it is a legal document and tends to be a little bit more verbose than your average person would typically enjoy reading. And that is, as I say, because it is a legal document. But we do have a flow chart on the website, and we will be directing people to that easy to follow flow chart. So now moving into the public hearing itself that was held yesterday. The summary of the written submittals to the tree bylaw were mostly in support. There was approximately 31 written submissions from 33 individuals, and 11 were opposed, 21 were in support, and 1 was neutral. The main points that were raised as far as points of support were the continuing protection of our natural assets and our ecosystem services, the preservation of habitat. There were some comments about expanding the protected tree list, and also a desire to see a moratorium on tree cutting until the bylaw is ultimately adopted. But by far the most positive comments were in regards to the protection of our natural assets and the preservation of habitat. The main points in opposition were concerns about impacts on right to develop private land, lack of public input, some concerns about restricting ability for solar energy and urban agriculture, and also concerns about possible conflicts with view protection. Further to the question of confusion about with the language in the bylaw, some of the activities that are no permit is required, their proper pruning and maintenance. So that is not, a permit is not required to prune and maintain trees on the property, which includes the removal of dead and dying branches, thinning of a tree, removing the lower branches to potentially improve clearance for pedestrians or vehicles, and to improve views, and reducing the size of the tree as well. Hedge pruning is not required. A permit's not required for hedge pruning. No permit is required for removal of invasive plants. Where permits are required are hazardous tree removal, and as I say, that has been streamlined in the bylaw. If the protected tree is located within the building envelope of a lot or proposed building footprint, if the tree is interfering with underground or overhead utilities or services, and removal of trees for the installation of roads or services in respect of a subdivision. And right now, those ones that are all permits required. Right now, they are not required to pay a fee, and that is partially to encourage compliance and also to recognize that some of these activities we are already collecting fees for under other actions and processes within the town. So the continuing the communication is again is the once the tree bylaw has been adopted, postcards would be sent to all town of Gibsons residents, as well as contractors who would typically be involved in tree maintenance or removal. And of course, we'll be conveying the key messages through social media and the town's digital newsletter. The strategic plan, of course, this is consistent with the council's objective of responding to a changing climate, and it really is a key bylaw and a key consideration for climate change, and the benefits and of retaining tree cover, retaining tree canopy is significant, it's on one hand, it's a little bit of a switch because, or a little bit of a change in thinking, because this does involve public property as well as both public and private property. So on that realm, yes, it's a little bit of a change. However, our development permits also apply to both public and private land as well. And so this is a little bit more broader. It does affect every parcel in the town of Gibsons, just as our aquifer protection DP area affects every property in the town, and our environmental and geotechnical affects some properties in the town. So as I say, that is certainly consistent with the tree bylaw is certainly consistent in that regards to those type of municipal procedures. I think I will stop there. I've probably given you enough background on that and the public hearing, but I'm more than happy to take any questions of clarification or concerns that council may have.
Thank you, Director of Infrastructure. The public hearing was interesting last night. A lot of different points of view were expressed, which is to be expected on an issue of this nature. And I really appreciate people bringing out some information to us. One of the things that came through clearly from a couple of presenters was the complexity of the bylaw. And one thing that I would like to see if we do adopt it going forward, is that it's starting to collect those common questions and preparing a Q&A that can go onto the website in response, so that when somebody asks a question and we research that and we see that question reoccurring, that kind of Q&A be put out there, so that so we only have to really research and answer it once, and then we have the information. As well, it might be very useful to develop a pamphlet or a series of pamphlets around the bylaw for property owners, homeowners, as well as for developers, builders, contractors, and other people who might be working with trees in the community, just so that they can kind of focus the bylaw a little bit more to their particular interests or needs as well. So I do appreciate the approaches that were suggested last night, all the way from, if it's not adopted, we should put a moratorium in place, and until we have a further discussion, looking for more consultation on it, looking for more information about it. At some point in time, in my view, we have to make a decision and move forward. It's not going to be perfect. Striving for perfection in the first instance should not be our goal. Our goal is tree preservation. I think that the additional resolutions that are proposed here, that the bylaw be reviewed after 6 months and the staff prepare a report to council on with recommendations for amendments or additional consultations with the community in April of 2021. And that report could come forward at any time in the next 6 months, but I just want to give it some time to be out there because we are going into winter and there's probably a much less interest in harvest or cutting trees down. The other recommendation that is there is that staff include information about actions taken, permits issues, trees removed, replaced, and other matters on the tree protection bylaw in the infrastructure department's quarterly reports. So we have kind of an ongoing review of what's going on. And also that the annual reports speak to the urban forest and the activities there. So those two recommendations, I think, are something council should seriously consider. We have received the report, so before going into any further on it, I would invite councillors to have any comments they wish to make at this time. I saw Councillor Ladwig first.
So I guess just a few comments. First of all, more about process. I guess last night's public hearing surprised me a little bit, I have to say, because I know that we passed a resolution to go through first and second reading, and then we were going to seek public information before kind of, going to third reading. Or at least that's how I understood it. And then it felt like the public hearing was our only opportunity to engage and hear from the public. And so the process itself threw me off a little bit. Like I kind of expected it to come back to us with either a survey having gone out to the community or some other form of information gathering before it went to public hearing. So I'm struggling a little bit with the process. I like the fact that we're at least at a point where we're saying that we're putting some bounds around when we'll review this again. 6 months for me would be a max. And if we can commit to reviewing it again in 6 months for sure. I always get a little bit nervous when we pass a bylaw like this and say we're going to review it again. And then staff get, naturally they're very busy and, time can pass without us actually coming full circle and reviewing it again. So if we're, if we can pass a resolution of some sort saying that it will be reviewed in 6 months, then that makes me more comfortable. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Director of Infrastructure.
Yes, Mayor, I'm not sure if you'd like me to respond on some of these items.
Yeah.
But,
if you have comments, go ahead.
So as far as the communication with the public, postcards on this were sent out to every property owner in the community. It has been well advertised on social media and our webpage. And the kind of, I don't know, the challenge a little bit that you've got and that we have seen is that the longer we go without a bylaw, the more trees are getting cut down. And we have really noticed on a staff end, we have really noticed an increase in the number of trees being cut down since the bylaw was first introduced. And so I think it would be fair to assume that you're going to have the same happen if it is, or continue if the bylaw is delayed. And that's a decision that of course council has to make. It's always been staff intent to float this not as a trial bylaw, but a bylaw that we recognize is probably not going to be perfect the first time out of the gate. And so just because the bylaw is being adopted, it does not mean that there will be, that communication with the public is going to cease. In fact, from a staff end of things, I see it actually increasing. and us actually being able to collaboratively work with both developers and homeowners in applying the bylaw, listening to concerns that might come up, and trial running a lot of the regulations that we have put in place that have come from lots of other municipalities who have done this before. And so I really see the biggest communication happening in many ways on a one-on-one basis as we respond to contractors, developers, individual members of the public. And we can go out, we can visit them, we can pass the message that, or communicate the message that this is a collaborative process. And I'm anticipating that apart from hazardous trees, we're not likely going to get any emergency tree removals. It may be that somebody wants to remove it for a view or what have you. And so I would suspect that it's not going to be a great hardship to wait until, 6, 5, 4, 3 months until we bring that back for discussion. So I think that's all I had on that point.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else? I see Councillor DeAndrade. I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Ladwig. That was my concern as well. And just a clarification, Director of Infrastructure, did you say that you send correspondence to every property owner?
There's Councillor Kroll's version right there.
Oh, I don't remember seeing that. Okay, well, okay, I appreciate that. No problem. I understand. I believe that there is some work to be done still in the bylaw, but I agree. I think this is a matter of priority, and I like the commitment that we will be looking at this in 6 months. My only concern with 6 months, when we start looking at 6 months, that might take another 2 months for us to come to council and discuss. Is there a way of making 6 months? I'm just afraid because then you start the season, right? And actually nesting season starts in March. So if something has to happen, I'm not sure, gardening starts early. So that's one concern.
We have asked for a report to come to council in April of 2021.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, no, I know, but it was saying that the revision would come in 6 months. So perhaps in April, we start dealing with the situation, and by 6 months, we would have everything revised.
No, in terms of April is the 7th month going forward.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought April as a 4th month. Obviously, we are. So that's my concern in a way that could impact certain activities. So I don't know if there's any way of speeding up this process, right? Because we would receive, my understanding, we would receive 1 quarter report this year still, right? Some feedback, right?
Yes.
And we could receive a second one at the beginning of the year, right?
We will receive a quarterly report at the end of, for the end of December, and then we'll receive a quarterly report for the end of March.
Yeah. So by the time you will be revising, this will be over 6 months.
Well, this is not a bylaw like a zoning bylaw that has to go to public hearing. We chose to go to public hearing primarily because of the COVID situation. It was the best way to have public consultation, but people did write in as well. We had written information, and you will recall back in June when we received this initially, the recommendation was to give it first, second, third, and adoption immediately, sort of thing. And
no, I understand. I think I'm just trying to reiterate the Councillor Ludwig's point, because it's my concern too. And how can we ensure that 6 months is the period that we will be revising? Because as I see, by the time we get it, it could be 8, 9 months. And that's the one concern that I would like addressed. I have another, I I saw that the permit fee, no, how to say, the penalty, if someone top a tree, it's $400. I almost feel that is not enough, because if I decide, something, and if I pay on time, it's 350. I said, I'll pay 350 to cut this tree and have a view, and I'll have to pay just $350. So in this regard, I would like perhaps that we evaluate this, because I think it has to be a way higher penalty for topping off a tree. If you want to preserve the tree, when you top a tree, it could be a big problem. Actually, when you top a tree, there's a damage of a potential of damage in the tree, and $350 for someone that wants a view, it will be easy to pay. So that's another concern. And I would like also, if I may ask, I know we are passing these two resolutions right now, so we can pass, but after that, I would like to perhaps make another resolution.
Councillor Lumley.
I kind of hear what Councillor DeAndre is saying, but you know what? There is no fee high enough, because there's so many examples of, even in Vancouver, people they have the money, they'll just cut the trees down and pay the fines, other than jail time. So I don't know what because I look through there, all the fines and stuff, and I go, yeah, $300. What's $300, right? It's like nothing. So, but I don't, like, people pay $3,000 if they want to cut trees down to better their view, they'll just do it, right? So I don't know what, fines, I don't know what the answer is in that, but I kind of agree, but I just don't know what the solution would be, just to raise them. Might not be a deterrent either, so anyway.
Director of Infrastructure.
So just in regards to the concerns that were raised by Councillor D'Andrade, the concerns about the 6 months, as Mayor Beamish indicated, we're going to be reporting in September, December, and again in April. And if council is seeing a trend that says, oh my God, there's all sorts of terrible things happening with this bylaw, then there's no reason why council could not ask staff to move that up. On the other side of it, though, is we also want to be able to have adequate time to gather enough feedback from residents and from developers. 6 months might be long enough, it might not. And so you will have every 3 months a chance to review that and decide whether or not a longer period of time or a shorter period of time is more appropriate. The fees and charges and fines, they are coming up in two separate reports coming up after this one. And if council wanted to see any change in those, then it could be done when we discuss those reports.
Yeah. Councillor Crowell, last word.
All I wanted to say is, the Q&A application towards this bylaw is going to be a bit of a barometer on how it's being received. If there's, thousands of questions and, staff are spending a lot of time just dealing with these questions, we're going to get a heads up pretty quick that, hey, we've got a problem here, we have to deal with it. So I think the Q&A aspect of the bylaw gives us a good barometer for council, for staff, for the public to see how it's going. So, I really like that aspect of the bylaw. And I think, if there's a lot of questions that are coming up and it's becoming a major issue, then obviously we're going to have to review it sooner than later. And, I'm really, as everyone's said, it's not going to be perfect out of the gate. But I think for the protection it offers, it needs to be in place as soon as possible.
Council has recommendations in front of you. There are currently 4 recommendations. I'm going to suggest a 5th one, and I understand Councillor D'Andrade has one as well. The additional recommendation I'm going to suggest is that well, it'll come after adoption if council chooses to adopt the bylaw, or rather to give a third reading tonight. I'm going to recommend that council have a special council meeting on Friday, September 18th at 2 p.m. to give a final adoption, so that we can move forward and not see any more trees cut down in the period of time, because otherwise we'll be waiting until October to bring it back to council. So that will be my thought. So we have in front of you recommendations. I'm going to read those so that members of the public who don't have an updated agenda in front of them. It is that council give the tree preservation bylaw number 1282 2020 third reading, and that council repeal policy 6.1 tree removal policy tree removal on public land. I'm actually going to suggest that council that resolution not be put forward tonight, because that if we do not have a bylaw in place before October, we've rescinded the only policy that we do have, and we would not have a policy. So I would ask that particular resolution come forward at the same time that we adopt the bylaw, as opposed to prior to adoption. So that the next resolution is the tree protection bylaw number 1282 2020 be reviewed after 6 months, and the staff prepare a report to council on its implementation with recommendation for any amendments or additional consultation with the community in April 2021. And further, the staff include information about actions taken, permits issues, trees removed, trees replaced, and other matters under the tree protection bylaw in the infrastructure department's quarterly reports to council and in the annual report to the community. Quarterly reports actually, as Director of Infrastructure mentions, actually would pick up the last 2 weeks of this year, this month, in fact, for the first reporting of this process. And then the next one will be the end of December, and the one the end of March. And so then leave it at that until we actually see. So I'm actually just moving or recommending council move the 3 resolutions, the one about the third reading and the one about the reporting after 6 months and inclusion of information in the quarter reports. Would somebody be prepared to move those resolutions? Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Ladwig. Thank you. Further discussion on those? I believe you understand what we're voting on. So all in favor? Thank you. So my next recommendation is that council hold a special council meeting on Friday, September 18 at 2 p.m. To give final adoption to tree preservation bylaw number 1282 2020. Is anyone care to move that? Councillor Kroll, Councillor Diandrad. Further discussion of that? Is everybody available? We're going to have council members available at 2 o'clock on Friday. Councillor Ladwig, you're not available? Councillor Lumley?
That would be the only thing on the agenda for that meeting?
The only thing, a special meeting to discuss that item.
Okay.
Adoption.
I'll be available.
Okay. Councillor Diandrad?
I have a suggestion. We have a housing assessment from up to 12 o'clock. Is it possible to have a meeting earlier? So we almost could.
Well,
So I don't know if it makes sense, but.
on Friday, I have a meeting from 8:30 to 8:50. And then I have a meeting at noon sharply. If council wants to meet at 9 o'clock, special council meeting at 9 o'clock, time is neither here nor there for me. I'll be available. So how does council feel about 9 o'clock for a special council meeting?
I'm fine.
Corporate officer, is that doable?
I believe there's a CRD meeting at 9 o'clock.
Not on Friday, I don't think. Maybe SCRD?
SCRD or District of Seashelt with the UBCM.
Not on my schedule. I've got, there is on Thursday, but not Friday. I only show the Moti, our meeting with Moti at,
I'm sorry, I only vetted the 2 o'clock time frame. So I have notations down for conflicts earlier, but I don't have what they are. So
okay. Corporate officer, or sorry, CAO, the comment about 9 o'clock?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the meeting is for 8:30 to 8:50, so we could make the 9 o'clock.
Yeah, okay. Okay, does that make it easier for you, Councillor Ladwig? 9 o'clock? Okay, so then they'll just change that recommendation that the special council meeting be held at 9 a.m. on September the 18th. Councillor Crowe, I think you moved that and was it, are you okay with that change? Okay. So has that been seconded then? Will somebody second that? Councillor D'Andrade. All in favor of special council meeting? Thank you. Okay, so that's approved for 9 o'clock on September the 18th.
I can't make that, just so you know, I won't be able to make that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Ladd, we couldn't make 2 o'clock, so we're just trying to struggle for times here so that if we can have the quorum, if the quorum is there, and we can do it. Okay. And then Councillor Ladwig, you had another, Councillor D'Andrade, you had another resolution. Now I'm conscious of the time. It's 8:54. We have a lot of things to go through tonight yet. So could I have a resolution to extend this meeting till 10 o'clock? Councillor D'Andrade, second by Councillor Ladwig. All in favor of extending to 10? Has to be unanimous. Thank you very much. We're extended. So moving on then to Councillor D'Andrade. You had a
Yes, it's, thank you, Mayor Beamish. It's because the street preservation bylaw, it's attached in former reports that has been attached to the urban forest, right? And included amending subdivision, establishing a national healing forest, and providing a report detailing. So we passed this resolution. And what I felt is one of the council's first commitments when we took office was the preservation of charming lands. And I see that even now, the National Healing Forest is being created, not that I'm against, I'm completely in favor, but we almost forgot the creation, the support for that. So I would like to make a motion that the charming lands creation of the as a park, designated as a park, be part of this work that we are doing, because it has been 2 years. And in the past, we were like waiting for the valuation of the charming lands, but it's obvious now that whether the charming lands has some incredible value for stormwater or not, it has a value for the community. So to me, I don't see that the decision to designate charming land as a park, it has, to me, is indifferent. I don't think we should wait for the valuation. I think the community has big expectation. I think, if I can remember, almost council was unanimous and say that we were going to protect. Last time we talked about that, I believe the CEO was going to present some scenarios, and so council could debate. I would like to make a recommendation that we bring this back to council and maybe present at the next council meeting or as soon as possible.
I think we have talked about both the Charma lands and the White Tower Park area, and I think we need to have a report on that. I don't even know what the boundaries are in order to be able to say that this is the area. This requires us to go through an OCP and a zoning amendment bylaw. So there's quite a bit of work that has to be done on those. And the intention was to bring it back with one kind of a process of White Tower Park when that's ready to be brought back, and the Charma lands as well, defining what they are so that everybody can look at them on a map and understand what they are. and understand what's being done and the implications of that, because it will go through a public process as well. Director of Infrastructure?
Yeah, we're, to be honest, we're quite, on a staff level, we're quite excited about the movement that's happening in this area. And the tree bylaw is only the beginning of this. It's just, almost just protecting what we've got already, but we've got a tremendous amount of work in front of us that we're really quite eager to get to. We will be reporting back to council. I don't think that it would be October, but I would hope that before the end of the year we can at least give you a list of items that are on our to-do list in regards to the preservation of the urban forest and improving the health of it, and that includes Sharman Lands and White Tower Park area. So rest assured, it's very high on staff's priorities anyway, that we will be reporting back to you on that. And perhaps in the quarterly report, it might also be an opportunity to provide you with some of the steps that we have identified anyway, that we could, and then give you a timeline, because we do that with all our capital works projects as well, is we tell you, yeah, these are all the projects and this is when we're anticipating on getting to them. And this is just a brief blurb on what that looks like. Perhaps we could do that for the items surrounding the urban forest, including the Sharman Lands, for you for the next quarterly report.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, nothing further on the tree bylaw at this time. We go forward then to the 11.2 is the bylaw notice of enforcement. 112510 for the tree preservation bylaw, and that that the bylaw notice of enforcement amendment bylaw number 11251020 be given first, second, and third reading. Is there any discussion on that? Somebody care to move it first? Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, so that will come back as well on Friday because it's part of the tree preservation bylaw. And the 11.3 rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaw 119619, recommendation that the bylaw be given first, second, and third readings. Now, does somebody want to introduce that and then tell us what all that is? Are there changes in there other than for trees?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Very briefly, it covers largely an administrational update, which is the wording that you see in the attached bylaw. There's no schedule of fees attached to that particular one. There's Schedule B and C, which are to do with water utility unit costs, and I'll just really quickly highlight those ones for you. And then Schedule J is the fees related to the tree preservation bylaw. So attached to the report in Part B there of the bylaw itself, in item 2, or I'm not sure what the proper reference is, but that is all the verbiage that is just essentially housekeeping for the administration end of things. Schedule B, I just lost my highlighted one, there we go. So Schedule B, there's been some minor changes to the costs of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 or 8 items. They're fairly insignificant, but they're just to reflect current pricing. There's some new items that are not new charges per se, but more items that we've actually provided unit costs to, which makes it a lot easier for homeowners or home builders and contractors, et cetera, to know what their costs are. and it certainly helps streamline staff's work as well. And so that is the cost of meter boxes, as well as just supply only of those items, and those are the concrete boxes that the meters actually go in, and some unit costs for asphalt trench repair and concrete curb repair and concrete sidewalk repair. And what we're doing on a staff level on those is that we are, when you have unit costs, some take a little bit longer, some may cost a little more, some may take a little bit shorter, and cost a little less. The idea is that you're averaging these costs, so a homeowner or a builder is not faced with a way higher cost of installing a service than his neighbor is. And so we're going to be monitoring this and make sure that we've pegged that average correctly. And if it needs any amendment, then we'll let you know. And then Schedule C is for sanitary and storm sewer. And again, the first three items were the first two items were update. And then there's a few there, 6 or 8, that are new items, where the installation of an inspection chamber, for example, and that's the pipe, the vertical pipe at the property line that allows us to create a division between private and public. And then you've got the same asphalt repairs and concrete, etc. And then schedule, all the user rates for sanitary have remained unchanged. It is only the fees and charges and both water and sanitary that have been amended. And then you got Schedule J, which is a very short one, dealing with the fees associated with the tree bylaw. So happy to take any questions if you have any.
Councilor Dean Dredd.
First of all, because I just a few minutes ago I mentioned about the top of a protected tree a penalty, and we're going to deal. But apparently, we just dealt with we just passed the other bylaw, and I realized. So I think I didn't have the opportunity to discuss. But I wonder if this could be part on Friday when we need to approve, because I don't think it makes sense to be $400 a penalty for topping a tree. I think we need to escalate this number. And
you have to do that this meeting.
Pardon me?
You would have to do that this meeting, because otherwise you have to, on Friday, you would have to
repeal third.
Or
then I'm happy, just because we passed to the next, and I thought that this specific bylaw was attached to the rate, fees, and charge. So can we do this right now?
You can make a recommendation to on this here in terms of the top in the trees.
Well, I would put at least $2,000. And if someone makes a protected tree and you're gonna top knowing that is illegal, there has to be a substantial penalty.
Perhaps I can comment further on that. For starters, there's only a maximum that we are allowed to have in a bylaw as a fine, and that is $1,000. And so that's why you see that the maximum $1,000 in there. However, we can also in the bylaw, you'll see that there's that anybody who commits an offense against the bylaw is liable on summary conviction to a fine of up to $5,000 in addition to the cost of prosecution. So regardless of what you have in the bylaw, you do still have the option of pursuing that in the courts up to a maximum of $5,000 plus costs that is already in the bylaw.
Okay, so perhaps you're suggesting there is no need. When I look at that, for me, for $350 is like insignificant. You know, so if I want to cut a tree, so I'll pay. So I think our purpose is to protect the tree. I would escalate to the maximum, both damage a protected tree and top the tree, anything that defeats the purpose of the bylaw. So we are going very stringent on the bylaw, but in terms of fees, it's like,
well, no, the fees are kept low.
Sorry,
right? So
the penalty.
And that one I think is, I'm not sure if council's passed a motion already or seconded that as far as the fees go. It doesn't sound to me like you have a concern about the fees. And so I would suggest that if you want to change anything in the, and maybe I'm treading on the corporate officer's toes here, but she's staying mute. So, but anyway, pass the rates, fees and charges bylaw, and then go back and revisit the bylaw enforcement one. But Lindsay, our corporate officer, is now live.
Well, it depends what Councillor Dandrad was wanting. So if it's within the rates, fees and charges bylaw, that change could be made now, that amendment. But if it's contained within one of the previous two bylaws that third reading has already passed, at the next meeting, you'll have to repeal third, make the amendment, and then redo third, and then we'll have to wait to do adoption.
So I think, I don't care too much about the process at this point. I would like to see something that to me makes sense. A penalty that low, it's not incentive. And I understand what Councillor Lumley said. If someone really wants and they have enough money, they would do regardless. But I'm sure if the penalties are really high, it prevents people from doing. So that's my point.
Councillor Ladwig.
If Director of Infrastructure wants to respond,
So another option here, just to keep the bylaws moving through in parallel, is to comfort yourself that you have the option in the bylaw already for the $5,000 prosecution. And then we look at the fines again when we bring back, we could even look at all three bylaws again when we bring the bylaw back for further discussion in, let's say, 6 months. That I think council has already made that resolution. So we can also discuss these ones at that time as well, if you'd like. And you could make that additional resolution at this point if you wanted to see that one brought back in 6 months or what have you.
Could you just point out to me where that is? What page? I'm looking through here, looking for that number.
On your agenda, page 200.
My agenda, page 200.
And that's the bylaw, the table of the bylaw fines and so on. The yeah, the $5,000 one is in section 7 in the tree bylaw itself.
I can tell you one thing about the $5,000 one, and that is that in probably 2006, 2005, the town prosecuted for cutting trees down in an environmentally sensitive zone. The cost of our prosecution was about $25,000 because we had to do it ourselves, and with legal advice and assistance, even though I appeared in court on behalf of the town. The sensitivity of the issue was by the judge was that that we were being heavy-handed, I think, and he found, although finding guilt, the penalty was $500, and so that it was a interesting process to go through, and statement for the town to make, but the actual recovery cost was not there. And I think that's probably pretty much the case sometimes. We have already given third reading to this particular bylaw, I believe. We can actually rescind third reading right now, amend it, and can we give it third reading again tonight if we do that, corporate officer?
Yep, yes, you can.
We could do that. So let's hear from other councillors. Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, I have a question. It's early payment. Is that like a government requirement? Because I would say just scratch that whole column. Like
it's consistent with
here you've just gone against a bylaw, right? But hey, if you pay us early, you get a discount for like breaking a bylaw. Like I don't get the whole early payment thing. Is that a government thing or is this the town? trying to be nice, or why don't
I
you just
don't-
say, hey, pay immediately. This is a fine, pay it.
I would be speculating a little bit, but from my recollection on this, this was likely a town initiative, and it was to reduce the amount of time that it takes the bylaw enforcement officer to chase up the payment. So, for the first one, it's better to have $800 in the hand than $900 you don't have.
How about $800 and the interest meter's ticking?
What's that?
$800 and the interest meter's ticking. So you can,
Yeah, so I'm
don't-
sorry, I can't comment
yeah.
further on that. I know that this is consistent with our other fines that are in the bylaw, that are in the bylaw enforcement. So I think it's probably a larger conversation. It's not just the tree bylaw that you're talking about. You're talking about the whole rates.
like
the whole,
Parking
bylaw.
tickets and things like that. There's incentive to pay them early, or there's a penalty for paying them late. That's what it comes down to. Parking fees the same. Go pay your ticket right now. We've gone back into bylaw number 112510, which we had actually given third reading to. Can I take us back then? And if you want to go into this, I'll need a motion to rescind third reading so that you can amend it. And then we can give it third reading again, if that's your decision now. Councilor D'Andrade, go ahead. You're muted.
Just a process. Are you talking to in my decision? You talk about
Council has to do it. Somebody has to move it.
Okay, I'll move. I just want to hear if council agreed that that's where we were going, because I believe this is an important point.
I'll tell you, I'm personally happy to wait until after the 6 months is done to see if we need to amend any fines and fees, and there could be other ones to be amended. Anybody who's going to violate, as Councilor Lumley says, who wants to violate the bylaw will violate the bylaw and pay it. I was very interested the other night. Somebody told me that they were offered $50,000 to cut a tree down on their property to improve the view of a neighboring property. They declined. 2 weeks later, they were offered $100,000, and this is in Gibsons, to cut the same tree down, and they declined. So that there are people who will improve views, and people who, as you'll recall, stimulated this bylaw in about May of last year, who simply had a neighbor come on the property and cut the tree down while they were away. So there's all sorts of ways that these things will be dealt with. So it's an odd thing. And we go back to West Vancouver, and I can remember when a property across the street from a very wealthy individual was clear cut, and she just chose to pay the fines.
I agree, Mayor Beamish, I can say, but at least the town would have more money to buy more trees and replace it. So I think that's my
possibly very
point.
possible.
If we're going there, at least charge something significant, then charge pennies that we won't do anything.
Why don't you move rescinding of by third reading of 112510 and see if you have support for that?
So I'll move.
Yes. Okay, is there a second to rescind third reading of 112510, the bylaw, notice enforcement bylaw? I'm not seeing a seconder at this time. My recommendation is we ask staff to include that in their review as to whether or not the penalties are sufficient, in their experience, and then they report on that, and then we can change it at that time. So that puts us back to bylaw 1196-19, 2020, and this is the fees and charges bylaw. The only one I question here, and I got to be honest with you, is that we have a fee for a hospital, and I'm not sure the reality of that, but I guess it's just part of the general bylaw. So anybody wish to move the fees, rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaw number 1196-19 for first, second, and third reading? Councillor Kroll is it seconded. Councillor Lumley. further discussion, that bylaw? Yeah, Councillor Ludwig?
Can you just remind me, is there a time when we review this more fulsome?
These come up periodically as things change, and often in the spring, the Director of Finance brings forward changes to fees and bylaws so that they can be aligned with the budget and aligned with the experience of the year.
Yeah, because there's a few of them that are just kind of seem random and weird to me, but I don't want to get into it right now. Like, I'd rather, when we're having a broader discussion about this.
I suggest that we bring it back during that budget period and look at there's also miscellaneous fees and expenses bylaw and things of that nature that we could bring forward. So,
okay.
Councillor D'Andrade?
I think it would be useful the same way when we saw the updates in the bylaw, like tracked. So it's very easy to understand the difference. Right now, my only hesitance, I have no idea what was the jump, right? It was something that was 700, now is 900. So it's hard to have so we can say yes, but so that's my recommendation. Or there's a discussion that say we increase 10% in everything. So right now I don't feel I understand the parameters. I don't disagree, but I just don't understand.
I understand. Last word, Director of Infrastructure.
All the pricing for the meter boxes and service connections, etc. It's very, and I can provide all the background if you wanted to, but it's all broken down by the amount of labor, the amount of materials. They're based on actual costs, and then it spits out the number. And so it's none of these are random numbers. Like, we don't feel like we should charge X number of dollars. They're actually based on our real costs, and the ones that have actually increased were fairly insignificant. I think it was under $20, I believe. It was just the opportunity to update those ones while we brought in those additional fees. But as I say, they are all based on actual costs.
Yeah, our fees and services are cost recovery. They're not profit centers, so that we're not reselling things at a profit. We're actually recovering our cost. Is the intention of these things. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. All in favor, that's approved. Okay, another one that you're all familiar with is the anti-noise bylaw, number 1285. And the recommendation is that be given first, second, and third reading. Does somebody care to move that? Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Lumley. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Ladwig. No.
I think it's just an error in, oh shoot, sorry, I got the wrong document opened up, but I noticed, or at least I believe that I noticed the quiet hours hasn't been updated in the bylaw that we're about to vote on.
Can you tell me what section we're in there, please, so we know?
Well, I can tell you it's quite 4.3.
4.3 quiet, okay.
Quiet hours. I think it just simply, when whoever was updating it forgot to add in the fact that we had actually discussed the quiet hours being Monday to Thursday, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., Friday to Sunday, and statutory holidays being 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., and then New Year's Eve quiet hours being extended to 1 a.m. That's what we had voted on, and it's just not reflected in here. So I think it was probably just a.
Well, we should amend it here. This is the bylaw we're passing.
Right.
Does anybody have the material that was approved at the last council meeting?
It's in our agenda package this evening under minutes.
Okay. Yep. Go back there.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I have the table here if you'd like me just to read it out.
Yes, please.
Yeah, under quiet hours, Monday to Thursday, 10 to 7, Friday to Sunday and statutory holidays, 11 to 8, and New Year's Eve hours to go to 1 a.m.
Yeah, okay, good catch, Councillor Ladwig. So those should be substituted for the hours referenced in 4.3. And we all understand that. Councilor Diendrad?
It was my understanding that we were going to put a table on the bylaw to make it easier. It's not? It is not, because we saw a table, and now where's the table? Or
A table was included in the report.
but it's not going to be on the bylaw?
The table was included in the minutes for clarity. The Director of Planning will have to speak to the changes in the bylaw.
Director of Planning, would it be possible to include that table in the bylaw?
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'm just looking at the bylaw from the PDC agenda, and it appears the wrong version of the bylaw was attached to the council report.
Yeah.
So the bylaw listed in the September 8th PDC agenda is the bylaw that should be getting first, second, and third reading.
There are other changes that are not consistent with the bylaw before us. Should we really should be having the bylaw before us to actually adopt. So can we perhaps move this to the next agenda? Corporate officer, can we do that?
Yes, we can. Currently, though, you do have it moved and seconded. So,
Well, I would suggest we rescind moving and seconded at this time if the council agrees. And then we move this bylaw to the next council meeting.
so you'd like to move that it be deferred to October 6th?
October 6th. Motion to defer to October 6th. That's exactly what I want. Councilor Ladwig, Councilor Kroll, all in favor of deferral? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Good catch, Councilor Ladwig. Yeah.
Mayor, just a question.
Councilor Diendrad.
Just a question regarding, is it possible to have the table on the bylaw? I think that's the question. I know it was on the report, but the question is if you could have in the bylaw just for easy interpretation.
Director of Planning.
Yes, it is. It is in the other bylaw.
It's included in the other bylaw. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we'll go on to the building bylaw, 1284/2020. And again, this is, council is familiar with this, and the recommendation on this one is that council give first, second, and third reading to building bylaw number 1284/2020. And is council satisfied they know enough about the bylaw and the reasons why it's here and the changes to move forward? If so, would somebody like to move the first, second, and third reading? Councilor Kroll, move first, second, and third, seconded by Councilor Ladwig. Thank you. Further discussion? Yeah. One of the questions that came up last time, and I had time to reflect on, and that was moving buildings from outside the municipality to inside the municipality. The reason that has been in bylaws, and it's not unusual to be in a bylaw, is that in a lot of areas, a lot of communities, areas outside the municipalities are not in inspection areas. So you bring houses into the municipality that have not been previously inspected. And people who buy a house in Gibsons expect it to be an inspected house. And the other thing was that I know up in one community I worked in, we would get a lot of the old trailers, the non-consistent trailers being brought in, just being moved because they were houses in those communities and being moved into the community and they were not up to scratch. So that I think has all been dealt with by the bylaw. And so that that's the big change of moving non-inspected buildings in. You want to be careful you don't do that. So, but this one requires them to be reviewed and brought up to speed. So first, second, third has been moved. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's first, second, and third. So we'll see that one again at our next meeting in October. So the next one is the bylaw enforcement, notice enforcement bylaw number 1125 for building, and a recommendation on this one is that the bylaw enforcement amendment bylaw 1125-11 be given first, second, and third readings. So somebody care to move that? Councilor Kroll, Councilor D'Andrade. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's passed. Now we're at the OCP bylaw number 985-25 for Popular Road and Davis Lane. And that this one recommendation is that this one be given second reading. Okay, Councilor Kroll, Councilor Ladwig, you will recall that earlier on this evening, we passed a resolution for the public hearing on the Popular Road and Davis Bay Lane. That came up in minutes of the committee meeting, so that we don't have to pass that again. That was recommended, and we approved the public hearing date. So that will be a full hearing by the community at that time. So any further discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all in favor of the bylaw, give them second reading. And the same for the zoning amendment bylaw for Popular Road and Davis Lane, that the zoning amendment bylaw number 106554 be given second reading. Someone care to move that? Councilor Ladwig, Councilor Kroll, all in favor of second reading? Thank you. Okay, so that will come up, and I believe the date, I just want to look back in the minutes that we approved. We've done so much. So the resolution sorry, just trying to capture it here. Davis Lane, okay, that and the zoning, okay, and further, an electronic public hearing be scheduled to begin at 5:30 p.m. on October 6th, as authorized under Ministerial Order 192/2020 in accordance with Section 465 of the Local Government Act. So we already adopted that, so that there will be a public hearing prior to our next council meeting. Okay, unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business? Are there any notices of motion? We'll go to inquiries. I'm going to give a short inquiry period tonight. I don't know how many people have stuck with us, but we'll see. Yeah.
At this time, I'll ask anybody who's in the meeting as an attendee to please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and I'll turn on your audio and video. And I do see one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's Connie Jordison, recognizing you from the local newspaper.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. Hadn't pushed the right button. Just quickly, when you mentioned that you had appeared on behalf of the town during the summary conviction proceedings earlier.
Yeah.
Did that occur while you were mayor? I know you had an elected and administrative capacity.
That was approximately 2005, and that was cutting in trees in environmental sensitive area associated with the Charmeland slopes at that time.
So what capacity were you serving the municipality at that point?
Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you.
And it seems prosecutor. Yeah. Maybe it was bylaw enforcement officer. I don't think we had one. I think that's what it was, actually. CIO and bylaw enforcement officer.
You'd make a great communications officer. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's what happens when you're here too long. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, corporate officer.
I'm not seeing any others, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us tonight. I know it was a long one. Gravity, thank you for staying up and not doing your homework, but staying with us instead. So wishing you all the best for the school year, by the way. It's going to be a real challenge. It's going to be something you're going to be telling your kids about.
Yes.
I walked up to school, to and from school uphill both ways. You had to do it during a pandemic. You know, I've
Yeah.
never had to do that. So,
And I'm just getting back into the swing of things. It's still, it was 2 months of not hearing any of this vocabulary. So don't worry, I'll be more, I'll speak more in the next meeting.
Good. No, I really appreciate you being here and observing and whatever input you can have or whatever information you carry from a meeting like this to your peers is important. And so that's all a role that you play for us. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to now ask for a motion to close the meeting in accordance with section 91E of the community charter. A part of the meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is more of the one or more of the following: acquisition, disposition, expropriation, improvements of the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Will you make that motion, please? Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Kroll, seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Good night, everybody else. And the rest of you, I'll see you in just a few minutes. Thank you.